Good morning or afternoon, depending on where you are right now. But welcome back to day 2 of our topical training. We are so excited you're joining us again today, and we are looking forward to more engaging and informative sessions on the agenda. Again, I'm Kendy Cox. I am with Public Strategies, and I'm going to get us started today. But before we take a look at what's on the agenda today, I wanted to take a brief moment and just reflect on yesterday. There was a packed agenda. You likely learned a whole lot. So I want to hear kind of where your pulse is on what you learned yesterday. So if you'll do me a favor, pull up your chat. Hi, everybody's posting hellos. If you pull up your chat box, and for those brave souls who use the chat box, I want to hear from you for a moment. So you probably learned a lot yesterday. We're going to learn a lot more today, and we're going to focus on all those practical applications that are so important for a training like this. But think about yesterday and tell me one thing that you learned that really stuck with you. It might have been that thing that you kind of couldn't get out of your mind as you had dinner or engaged in your evening activities. But I want to hear that one thing that has most stuck with you from the content that was presented yesterday. All right, already a brave soul. The importance of creating safe spaces for youth. Amazing. It is so important. The us, yes. Thanks, Maggie. Oh, another vote. Oh, we got a lot of votes for that same concept. Important. All right. Community is necessary to help youth. The psychological barriers in youth. Great. These are wonderful comments. Keep them coming. Who else has something to share? The research of Dr. Hong. All the ideas to break down barriers and how barriers can be turned into opportunities. The intentional application to thrive, wonderful. Perspectives of unmarried and married homes. Mental or behavioral characteristics of an individual that identifies as self-sufficient. And rethinking that. The importance of goal setting, amazing. Challenges, not barriers. That's important. Language is so important to how we present things in ways that can really be heard. Must be real with students, kind of the same thing, right? That presenting ourselves. Oh gosh, you guys are getting so much in here. Reminding youth that they can overcome barriers and achieve their hopes and dreams. Sometimes we just need that constant reminder and support. I missed a couple up here. I'm going to scroll up. Yeah, reframing obstacles into barriers. It's a more manageable word. Helping youth believe in their ability to be self-sufficient. Okay. Anything else before we move on? Challenges, an even better word, yes. Transparency, important. Foundational structure and how important it is in the ability to create self-sufficiency. Empowering students. Give a couple more seconds if anybody has any other ideas they want to share. Thank you for these, though. This is, I think, really important as Dr. Hong moves into his next session and all the other presenters today, just to think about those key points from yesterday and ways to help you sort of increase your knowledge on those key points and further apply them to what you're doing back home. Breaking out of the poverty mindset barrier. Thank you. Okay, well, that was very helpful. I think lots of common thoughts and also lots of unique thoughts, which is what we aim for in a training like this. So thank you for that. Okay, today we have more content. We're going to hear again from Dr. Hong. To know him is to love him, right? So that session on transforming impossible into possible. I just love the title. So amazing. The research-based curriculum framework that will be important to all of us. Then we're going to take a break, Breaks are important in trainings like this. And then we're going to come back with a grantee panel that's really focused on topic C and D. So every conference, every training, participants always want to hear from their peers. And so we always want to make it an opportunity built into the structure of the agenda to hear from peers. You can hear about their successes, you can hear about their challenges. And so this session is a great opportunity to not only do that, but then have the opportunity to reflect and make additional adjustments or changes to your thought processes that you can take back home as well. We'll take another break. And then our last session of today, you guys have come to know the concept of the field talk, where we really will take everything that we've learned and focus on step-by-step applying the models, the information, so that you leave these sessions, this training, with a concrete plan. So that's our goal, and you'll have opportunities to discuss those plans with your peers as well as the experts that are on the agenda this week. All right, I think we have our marching orders for today, and so I'm going to turn things over to Jerry, who will be moderating our first session with Dr. Hong. Jerry?
Thank you, Kendy, and good afternoon to everybody. Welcome. And yes, we're going to jump right into our session. As Kendy mentioned, this session will discuss the transforming impossible into possible. And Dr. Hong will use the TIP acronym as he moves through that. And the required topics of SRAE that we're kind of linking this research to today is focused on topics C and D, and how the TIP model might be used in those particular topics and sharing those topics. So Dr. Hong, I introduced him yesterday. He is from the Loyola University of Chicago, and professor and associate dean there for research in the School of Social Work. And so please welcome again with me, Dr. Philip Hong. Dr. Hong?
Thank you, Jerry, and welcome everyone. So good to see you again. We are continuing our journey from where we had been talking about psychological self-sufficiency yesterday. That was more of a concept that with the name PSS coming from research. But this one that you're going to be seeing with TIP, transforming impossible into possible, has the same structure, but a more of a practical application. So the impossible is the barrier, and then the possible is the hope. So we call that PSS yesterday. But today, and how to do PSS is the tip, really, from the impossible, the barrier, to the possible hope. And so how this came about is the shared vision within our community, mostly in the city of Chicago, on the South Side and West Side. A lot of agency partners came together, and we saw where together a vision where a world can come together. There might be systemic imbalances in access to opportunity and personal achievement. That can be strengthened by harnessing the potential of psychological self-sufficiency. And it's about strengthening individuals from inside out. And that's where we say that you have the DNA of PSS. It's not something I can teach you. Everybody does it differently, but we all do it because we have all, as human race, survived through many, many challenges together. And we're just trying to bring it out of you, the things that you already know, but sometimes you just don't know that you have it. And that's what what this is about. And this is about doing this together in a way to strengthen the process, and also by which we would get to the outcomes. So it's not in a way, outcome driven to be narrowly defined by outcomes, but expanding with the outcomes of many things that could come holistically in a way to strengthen individuals, families, and communities. So that's kind of the mission of the work. And it's an evidence-based social work intervention model. And it was done in partnership with many agency frontline staff and participants, teaching us what is really the secret sauce of success in reaching our milestones and our goals. And that's why it's participant centered. Although we like to use the word evidence-based, that's the evidence, I would say, with caveat that it's good quality evidence because individuals in programs are invested in sharing their data. It's not because some researcher came in and they said, can we do a survey with you? It's because they really felt that this was what it's about in reaching the goals and lifting up individuals and families and communities from bottom up. So we may call our communities vulnerable, but this is rising together by sharing those vulnerabilities. So it's really about shared vulnerabilities and sharing the risks, as some might have more, some others might not. In other ways, I mean, we kind of ebb and flow in seeing how our life situation changes. So that's kind of the idea behind it. This is rising together inside out kind of model. We're going to see some more slides later on showing that bottom-up spirit in this work. It's also TIP represents supporting two developmental tasks of self-identity and self-awareness strengthening and goal-directed actions that we call HOPE actions. And it's really to strengthen, based on the psychological self-sufficiency PSS theory, as the core organizing principle and evaluative tool. But it's about strengthening the muscle, the PSS muscle that we all have, and trying to be intentional about it. And that's what TIP is. And I have to say, this came about with some of my good practitioner friends asking me or challenging me, your PSS metrics are good and they might be very informative, but how can we do more to strengthen it? And so that was a challenge I got, and I received it. And I worked very hard through many listening sessions and focus groups to figure out what would be the best way to deliver and do it in such a way that it is easy on the participants because it's so natural, but also for the facilitators and for those who are going to be delivering it from the program side, be in collaborative mode as partners to do this together. Earning the trust with humility to be able to deliver is kind of the spirit of it. So as you saw some of this, the metrics of PSS yesterday, and you would see the HOPE score increasing, the barrier score decreasing, and together you see this area, the orange yellow area, increasing as the gap between the HOPE and the barrier widen along the way as participants go through programming. And that orange line here is what we call PSS, as we want to see individuals increasing the HOPE and decreasing barriers. And this has shown to carry, and you can see here the person over here, the PSS pulling the outcome of ESS, economic and financial self-sufficiency. It could be any other programmatic goals, outcomes that you could imagine, but PSS is really pulling the outcomes to emerge. So that's a depiction of how this is about allowing our natural course of how we go about business, how we take care of many challenges in life, come to be connected with programming to really thrive together. So this is time 1, time 2 time 3, and time 4 survey time, as we ask individuals to fill out the hope scores and the barrier score on an inventory or a survey. And people would just mark the scores on it. We'll calculate it and see how the hope score increasing, the barrier score decreasing. This gap switches the the barrier is now below the hope as individuals carry on in their journey. And that gap is the PSS. I just wanted to reiterate that. And this blue line, again, is the PSS line with representing the gap as this continues to increase over here. That carries over as an inside-out marker of success in a process that's representing individuals being invested in their process, yielded the employment and retention outcomes in the context of workforce development, of course, in this case, and any other goal outcomes you would see. And so increase in overall PSS score leads to increase in employment and retention outcomes. It's kind of what we have found. But unfortunately, let's imagine this time 3 as all the people who we care about. We've invested so much time and effort in coaching and being a cheerleader and even taking time out of our busy schedule of weekends and evenings, receiving text and just going over and beyond to support our participants, and then say this is the time when they are now kind of being handed over to the next program or the employer, whoever they might be. And suddenly the scores might dip. And then that's when we see some of them in crisis or maybe reaching out to us again. Can I come back to your program? Can I talk to you again? I really need your support because really it's it's based on relationship of trust that I receive so much care and support from you, but I am not having it with the next group of people I met. Often we run into that situation. This is represented by this PSS line suddenly dipping. And that's when we are seeing that our good work, all the investment and support and care suddenly evaporating with the disconnect in the next phase of program supportive services that may not be there. So suddenly the employment and retention outcome goes down as we see this pattern showing up. So that's kind of the where we would bring in TIP and say, can we make sure that this continues and not just be relying on the external support, but can we have build the stamina and the energy and all the resources needed internally, and also those resources to seek external resources to be able to continue the path that is not dipping like this, but one that also continues on with upward kind of mobility in this psychological self-sufficiency trajectory. Also, another benefit of this is to engage employers or the partners that would come after when we hand off our participants, our youth, to the next group, to say, let's say that could be college, that could be a community college, and say to them as they receive our students, please don't drop the ball on our PSS. This is really important. We built their internal strength. They have motivation. They have dreams. They're on their way to greatness that they're defining for themselves. And they're really on this success pathway of self-sufficiency as they're building out their future. Please don't drop the ball, because we know that this could happen if someone does not pay attention to that, to being participant-centered, youth-centered in providing services. So that's kind of where TIP comes in to kind of keep those accountability of our services being continued on, and also the journey that each of our youth are on to help them realize that it's also our advocacy work internally and externally to make sure those resources are there to continue on the journey. Now, this we saw as these time 1, time 2, and time 3 surveys are here. the one that you saw, the T1, T2, T3, that's where the survey time points are. The reason why you might be wondering, and why this survey 2 is here. I mean, don't we just do pre and post test, and we don't have to do too many surveys. That's taking away time from our youth to do surveys. That's just maybe too much of a burden on our staff or students. Yes, that can be, but if the students really see this as a tool to reflect, to think about their self-assess their PSS scores, the hope score and the barrier score, it really helps them be in this journey as they monitor their own progress. Now, why the middle one? You might be wondering. Because one might come in and say, I am all motivated and I am excited about this program. And then they might be really on the high when they start. Along the way, we realize that, we got to jump through all these hoops. We got to do this and X, Y, and Z. Oh, I don't know if I can go through all that, or maybe rearrange my life to be able to commit to all these things I have to do to succeed. Well, that's when sometimes the motivation dips. The hope score actually goes down. The barrier actually goes up during participation, during engagement, during reorganization of our priorities. So that could happen, but then suddenly it has a surge in the second half. It's kind of like going in the halftime, going into the locker room, and the coach says, yes, you can do it. Now we're going to go out there and kick some butt, right? So that second half game takes over after the second survey. That's like the locker room talk, right? And then you come out, and then you go out and just really bring out your best for the second half to kind of take over and possibly overturn some of the things, wherever the scores might be. You might overturn wherever the game might have been in the first half. So this second half is really important. And that might be the surge that brings you back to the same score that you might have been on hope earlier. But your change is real because you hit the rock bottom and then you went back up again. So the second half increase is really important. So we typically see that, and that's why we do the second survey. And I just wanted to emphasize that these surveys are part of TIP. And we start with this concept of identity and purpose. Who am I? And purpose in life. And we might be asking, who am I today, as we're coming into this room and saying, why am I here? Who am I? Where am I coming from? And what is my purpose in investing in this work to support the youth to be empowered and fulfill their destiny of greatness and to the fullest potential? That's really important as we launch ourselves in the journey. And forgiveness is number 2, and thinking about self-compassion. And you can see the circular theory of change compared to this linear version of the curricular kind of the grid. They align with each other, but you have to, we have to see the relevance here with forgiveness connecting to the latter half of gratitude, and identity and purpose, latter half of social support and compassion. So just let's keep that in mind as I go down the list of these concepts and topics and themes. So goal of forgiveness is one, like you let go of things, not necessarily trying to forgive everything. Things that cannot be forgiven, we leave those alone, but only those things that could free up a little bit of brain space to be able to do the goal setting. The goal setting is not about SMART goals, but it's truly what do you want to be when you grow up type goals. Like that could be very much, shoot for the stars. Anything that you can be when you set your mind to, you can be type goals that you set. And then try to draw out or imagine out your improvement and pathways. Sort of mapping is what we do. And then barriers this is where barrier, you see the PSS piece here, barriers here, the impossible, and then the green over here is the possible. You see here the donut right in the middle with a source of strength is the tipping point. You go from barriers to hope. And that's when we kind of think about barriers, not because these are heavy things that are in our lives, but now we have goals that we're committed to. And barriers are things that are just coming in the way of me reaching the goals. And that's why it's kind of like, I'm running fast now toward my goals and the wind is coming at me. That's a barrier, and if I have loose clothes on and if the it's catching the wind too much, then that's when then that could be a barrier. So things suddenly become barriers that were not barriers because now we're committed to our goals and we tip through our source of strength after we do the second survey, we go into hope. And that's when it could be employment hope, but it could be health hope. Remember, we talked about the contextualization of optimal health. We said now barriers are not employment barriers, but it's optimal health barriers. It's SRAE related, SRA related barriers. And also hope is more SRA related hope. Okay, why should I be committed to strengthening my decision making and avoiding some of the risks in sexual health? Why would I do that? Because I love myself. I have self-worth, and I see myself as having self-perceived capability, and I have the future. I see the possibilities, and also I can self-motivate as I look to the future, and I can utilize the skills and resources around me to reach my goal. Again, coming back to this goal commitment and improvement in pathways, revisiting the mapping that we did earlier, but then revising that mapping. And that's when it becomes a little bit more like SMART goals. We'll get to that in a later part, but its tip goal in the beginning is more like true, intrinsic, and purposeful goals. That's a tip goal number one. The latter half, we call it tip goal 2. It's tangible, intentional, and practical goals. So that's where it emerges in under tip 12. And then we go back to those deep-seated trauma, unresolved triggers of stress and anger. And then when they come in, they're going to derail you from your goal path. So how do we manage that? How do we prepare ourselves when those come to bite us? How do we avoid those? How do we make sure that we have a script in place so that we are not going to be tripping by those things that come up away from our goal path? And so that's that piece right there. And then we come back to gratitude, connected to forgiveness. This is about counting your blessings and being able to, we talked about that yesterday, and some gratitude journaling and things like that. This is exactly that in connection to forgiveness, and then seeking help and helping others. A lot of our youth say, I want to give back to my community where I come from. I want to be a public speaker. I want to go back to my high school, my junior high, and talk to those kids and be a success like me because I come from the same community and look at me. You can do it too. So this is about giving back and helping others. And how do we know that all the support that we've received to go towards our future goals? And now once we're in that mode of reaching our goals, we can always go and imagine us going back. So this is, again, an iterative process. As we talked about PSS yesterday, it's not just, it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It's not an easy path of just straight line of just reaching our success, but it's always about something that comes in the way, but we're transforming those impossibles to the possible with 2 steps forward. With scaffolded by these various different ways to support the PSS donut right here with barriers to hope, using our source of strength. Where does your strength come from? It could be my grandma's soft voice telling me, "Hey, baby, you can do this. Come on." Or it could be a drill sergeant in me saying, "Get up. Get up on your feet. Now you can't be crying on your feet like that." So those kinds of things can be your source. Whatever you want to draw your source from, you use that to tip the barriers to hope. That's what this program is about. You've seen these agencies in Chicago coming together. This is one agency with executive director all the way to the farm staff, this urban farm organization, and brought everyone together to experience it in one point. This is another agency that's serving youth with juvenile detention and other kinds of violence prevention work that they're doing. And so we brought the staff together to experience TIP. In the context of workforce development, we've seen TIP This is employment rate. Before tip, we saw with this one organization at 55% of employment rate and increasing over time to 86%. And again, I must say with the caveat, it's not the greatness of tip that we're trying to mention here. It's the greatness in each individual unleashing their fullest potential within. And when you're invested in that, sky's the limit and program outcomes emerge. It's not because some programming was implemented that suddenly is catapulted into the next stage of outcomes. It emerged because our participants, including our youth, are invested in their lives together collectively in partnership with facilitators, frontline staff, the agency leadership, and so forth. So again, this is the retention rate so this is a percentage of total employed. So out of everyone who was employed before TIP, 65% of people stayed in those jobs. But after TIP, 78%, and then it increased to 94% of people staying on the job that they were hired in. So interestingly, I mean, again, because people are invested, and the dropping of that, you saw the line dropping was not happening with individuals experiencing TIP. So that's something just to kind of show for the greatness that we all hold inside, that we wanted to kind of bring together and empowering our youth, and also seeing through how they can manage in the true self-sufficiency way, their own trajectory, own pathway, and owning the pathway to all the optimal health outcomes, SRA outcomes, and all the things that come to support their decisions and behaviors and everything that come along the way. So the humanship is the leadership component that we talk about in TIP with PSS muscles. It's a leadership in one's life or self-sponsorship that is developed through finding an optimal balance between awareness and action by focusing on one's internal locus of control. And it embodies citizenship and human rights in the way that you are a citizen of our society. You have the right to be a citizen, and you're one of the group, one of everyone as a member. And it's the same time you have the human. Being a human allows you to have the rights to fulfill your destiny of greatness and unleash the fullest potential that you have inside. And it's also built on relationship. And it's really with the idea that change starts with oneself. And each of us must change our own lives to match our goals and to help create the healthy relationships as we desire. It's really where I change for myself, and also I can change my relationship with another person. And it's kind of like the Dr. Martin Luther King would say, be the change. And so if you be the change, you'll see the change in your own life, but also relationship with others, but also being a leader in society to lead charge of many greatness that you will embody and also exemplify for others to emulate. I'd like to bring your attention to transformation, the concept that we want to focus on as transforming impossible into possible. It's a little bit different than change. And that is where it's not something that is modifying behaviors. It's about starting with the point of as is, the condition where who you are, wherever you might be. You might be showing up as not totally altogether, very stressed, maybe not having everything in order. That's great. That's the most beautiful person you are, the way you are. That's the as is condition of the individual where we're starting this journey and inviting everybody. Just come, be yourself, and don't try to clean up or act up. Come as you are. And this is exactly where we start, including ourselves. Currently, as we come into this room today, may not be the best position to listen to all the information and have be in the best condition today to exchange or share. But we are here as is, right? So that's really great. And we're grateful for that, and to be able to connect like this in this virtual world. And now it's not about having some external force modifying our actions. We're not going to be forced upon to change, but transform, meaning that we would modify the beliefs, what we believe in, the trust that is needed to really commit to those things that we want to put ourselves in the journey for. And so that's that the belief will lead to actions and thereby achieve the desired result naturally. It's just not because I'm trying to reach the goal or outcome. It's just now I'm putting myself in the natural course of trajectory or journey that will allow me to get to that. It's kind of like that employment and retention outcomes. It's not maybe because people are saying like I must get employed or must stay in this job. It's because I love my job now. I love this journey, even if it's not the best job right now. I am on my way to my next job, and I'm going to keep on keeping on. Is really what gets people to the next level for transformation. Change fixes the past, and it's a fix and improve model, but transformation creates the future. It also creates the system around your behavior so that your behaviors become sustainable. Your choices, your decisions become, so it's about creating the vision. So that's kind of the opening up a little bit. Not that change is a bad thing. It's a great thing. But adding to change are all these other things that could come with it. It's the outcome with change plus other things that'll come to make it holistic. And that's what transformation is about. And change is usually an event. Transformation is a process that creates sustainable change. We talked about that shortly just now. So it's an ongoing process. It never ends. If you transform, you'll always be on the move to the next level. Naturally, that is, right? As you can handle, as you can manage, as you can breathe, right? So change is reversible. Transformation is not, because it causes new system to emerge. And sorry, I'm not able to monitor my chat as I'm speaking. So if you have any great ideas, if I'm missing out on your great feedback, I will get to those as we approach the Q&A. But hopefully you can have some ideas that you can add into the chat as we go. So I'll definitely return to those, and I really appreciate your kind thoughts and careful kind of sharing of your expertise as we're probably connecting on many grounds, because your expertise and your experience probably were part of the things that I learned from others that I met in Chicago. So this is very much global in the way that we serve our community, especially our youth. So I really appreciate you and salute you for your great work and all your leadership in the community. And so again, this bottom up, inside out model of transformation is what this work is about, and it keeps the people on this path of human-centeredness, or we call that humanship, and allowing in this bottom up to effect change in the system, so that system then allows us to provide more resources and support for this internal system to continue on. So it's kind of the sprouting out of ourselves to affect our next system of family units, the next system of our community, and next system of our schools, and other different systems that we have around us, to then reach the macro system of political system and whatnot, our state and federal and possibly even global. So continuing this journey, but we have the stem, or we have the roots that is connected to who we are, as we are most beautifully created human beings, working together to rise to the next to our potential greatness, especially our youth. This is again transforming system model with our micro, meso, and macro. This is another slide that just shows the same idea of this bottom up that we were talking about. So now I want to kind of bring us to this our how we typically approach program development and planning, which is often outcome based, which is not a bad thing. We have to reach our outcomes, and this is really serious because we have funders who are supporting us with every resource that's needed, and philosophically and relationally, this is very important. So we have to reach these outcomes for everything to be in good place. So we typically start with this optimal health outcome or any outcome in programming, and we work backwards to get to those pieces and design those out, and then try to implement the program moving forward to reach our outcomes. This is how I engage in my own planning, and also work with our partners in the community to support their program design and planning and implementation. What TIP challenges all of us to do is to take it one step deeper in and meeting this purple box, who the youth are. Who are the youth? And starting and challenging us to start there. While this outcome is important, with the faith in knowing that if we tap into the youth as who they are and allow their greatness, their talent to come out in full, there's no doubt that we're going to reach this optimal health outcome. That's the faith, the leap of faith that often is difficult to do because we're busy. We have timeline for how quickly we have to use our funding to get it into motion and recruit, also have the staff ready to go. So this is typical of what we do. But the challenge is with TIP is to get to this, who are you, or asking the youth, and who are we as the servants working with our youth, to then say, why do they want to learn, or why do they want to participate in the program, and then get to the learning goals, developing the learning goals with the youth, and how they and building into this model how youth learn best, or how youth implement best in their self-sponsored goals, and then allowing the method to kick in after that, and then also the content of what to teach, and then looking at the SRA outcome, and then the ultimately optimal health outcome would be kind of the challenge that we would receive from our what TIP could bring in the work that we do. And as service providers, we often stand between the two worlds of serving the youth and meeting the expected programmatic outcomes. We can ask the following questions as we contemplate the best practice for our youth. Who is the target audience, and who defines what the success is going to be? And what is transformative person-centered approach? These are kind of the questions that we can ask. And moving, and it may look like a less defined path, but we can use TIP to engage the youth in a journey that really matters to them. The empathy needed in the design thinking for innovation can be tapped for youth investment in the innovative, personalized journey that will result in their desired future state. And it becomes an authentic process as a result. And we can ask ourselves, do we have the courage to stand in solidarity with the community and with the youth, and invite success outcomes to emerge from the true self-sufficiency process by being human-centered and investing in human potential of our youth? So this is really what TIP will bring in, not keeping us accountable to this, but encouraging us, challenging us, but allowing these to naturally formulate in the way that we move our position as service providers to the left, closer to our participants are youth, ultimate goal of serving our youth. So this is a design thinking process where the empathy is connected to our youth. Now, you've seen this before in the problem definition model yesterday, and this is just to translate what we saw in the workforce development world, as we saw the barriers, as we had seen, talked about it yesterday. And this is going to be a little bit more normalized, not something negative per se, but something that is in all human beings' lives as we are trying to reach our goals. And it's, again, how the barriers might contribute to dependency and poverty is that if that's the starting point of how the problem definition of service for lower income or most vulnerable, at risk, those terms that we use, not that attractive, but how do we empower our communities to bring out their fullest potential and the great beauty that they have and the awesomeness that they have into this encountering the way in which negatively sometimes our communities, our youth are looked at from outside in. So that's the challenge that we're facing in formulating the new problem definition. And often we were given the prescription of employment to reach the economic self-sufficiency outcome. And that psychological self-sufficiency was that missing piece that we said would be fueling the contribution of effect on economic self-sufficiency and financial security and stability. But now, I want to introduce us as we focus on the youth optimal health and relational stability as our ultimate outcome, this positive youth development as a framework, which is implemented at the community level, creating opportunities for youth to thrive. A working definition of this approach is positive youth development is an intentional pro-social approach that engages youth within their communities, schools, organizations, peer groups, and families in a manner that is productive and constructive. It recognizes and utilizes and enhances young people's strengths and promotes positive outcomes for young people by providing opportunities, fostering positive relationships, and furnishing the support needed to build on their leadership strengths. And so you can find that in the chat now, and that is also a link to the exchange to find this document. But this framework is one where we can use in making this transition or application of the PSS framework to positive youth development and healthy decision-making skills. And we can see how PSS can contribute to SRA youth making healthy choices through knowledge leading to change attitudes and behaviors that ultimately would lead to optimal health and relational stability for our youth. And you'll see here in this depiction of the kind of a ladder of our youth going up the ladder to our final destination of the TIP concepts. These are all sort of each one here, a block, I would say, or a ladder block, represent a TIP concept. And the generic TIP in the bottom ladder is one you saw earlier. But as you would apply this to the SRA concept, who am I as a youth avoiding SR or sexual risk? And what is the purpose in life as I am trying to focus on my optimal health goal? How do I forgive in the context of this SRA avoidance? And youth development and SRA goals is the goal setting that we would focus on in this context with SRA barriers and source of strength being used to tip the SRA barriers to SRA hope is the application we're making in the context of the youth sexual risk avoidance and in relation to PSS process. How do we tap into unresolved triggers of stress and anger and avoid some of those with good positive scripts that could be employed in allowing us to keep moving up the ladder with and ending our kind of a journey with gratitude and social support and compassion. But I have to mention that each step is not just linear, but they are iterative in the sense that, like how we talk about design thinking, it's one informing the other, but also the next one is not necessarily a function of the previous one, but it could also be a combination of both, or even just the one that is the one beginning that was not fully reflected upon, that may come back to help you in terms of the goals, or even thinking about barriers. So they're sort of interconnected as one moves in the journey, and it's all different for each youth as they experience it every day on their own path to success. Now we had this slide show presented yesterday, but I want to bring our attention just so that this optimal health is what we are focusing on, and we're making applications to the A through F in our in SRAE, and especially today as we're talking about TIP, transforming impossible into possible. We are particularly highlighting the C and D of the A through F, and the C, it would read, the increased likelihood of avoiding poverty when youth attain self-sufficiency and emotional maturity before engaging in sexual activity. And the key words are highlighted here in bold, and I wrote it down here on the avoiding poverty, self-sufficiency, and emotional maturity are key words. And if we were to make the link to what TIP could bring in allowing us to focus on these aspects, are this first bullet point of PSS increasing ESS, the outcome, the process allowing us to reach the outcome of economic self-sufficiency. So it may not be necessarily tied to workforce development or employment, but we are coming out of, someone mentioned earlier, poverty mindset or victim mindset, or those kinds of things were shared in the chat box earlier. But it's that kind of thing of how we come out of the shell or being locked up in the way that has been, but allowing the new to emerge and allowing us to give us the permission to go get the great economic fulfillment, even financial fulfillment of our efforts in the end. So it is definitely about avoiding poverty and preparing our PSS muscles to thrive, and not just in the areas of optimal health, but other ways of enhancing our economic opportunity. Self-sufficiency, again, it's about activating sustained ownership of self-sufficiency processes and outcomes. This PSS is invigorated through TIP, is what we can talk about in the application, and tapping into that keyword of self-sufficiency. Emotional maturity is another piece, and emotional stability is strengthened from staying on goal-oriented pathway. And this B less than H is one to, we talked about the risk and benefit analysis yesterday. And this is kind of like that, with hope always staying greater than barrier is my mindset now. I may have some barriers here, but my hope is always higher. And if my mindset is about moving forward with 2 steps forward, and I'm intentional about it, that provides me with emotional stability. I'm not going to be always panicking when I run into situations of barriers or any type of challenges or obstacles. So that's the C. And then with D, the foundational components of healthy relationships and their impact on the formation of healthy marriages and safe and stable families. The keywords highlighted here in bold are healthy relationships, healthy marriages, safe and stable families. And how does TIP contribute to these keywords? Is with positive relationship with self and others. Is really it's part of TIP, and being able to strengthen that relationship, inward-looking relationship with myself, but also as I think about giving back to my community and building, strengthening relationships through forgiveness and also gratitude, and reformulating my my preconceived notions of how I saw certain relationships to those that will be very positive in nature through TIP. That could be something that we can make the connections to that keyword. And then healthy marriages, marriage founded on love and compassion and commitment to partnership in mutual growth and support is really critical in TIP as we honor the journey with you and me. We're all on the self-sufficiency journey or PSS journey. Everyone is on a journey. But as we do that individually, it may look like individual psychological self-sufficiency, but I know that you're doing it and you're trying your best to keep your hope greater than your barrier. And I'm doing the same. So we're connected through the barriers that you might be having some different barriers that you're now facing, but that barrier might have been the same barrier I faced maybe 2 years ago. So we're connected. So we connect in spirit as the journey, those who are on journey together, but knowing that we're doing it in the same way of overcoming those barriers with hope. So that brings the marriage relationships, not as just the partnership as a result, but knowing that we're each in our own journey. In that partnership comes the healthy marriage. Also, safe and stable families. You'll see trusting relationships built on confidence to be vulnerable. Again, that vulnerability, the shared vulnerability that I mentioned earlier, we're going to come back to that tomorrow again. But to go dig a little bit deeper into that concept of shared vulnerability, but it's really we're not being ashamed of having any barriers. It's really like normalizing it as everyone has barriers. Look, I mean, it's not like I'm the only one here. And we're sort of connected because your barriers might look a little different, but how much it's weighing on you is pretty similar to what I'm facing right now. But at the same time, I have this trusting relationship knowing that you and I are doing this together, grounded on this kind of the shared vulnerability principle. And are confident that we're moving forward with hope. So those are the two. So just reiterating the C and D part of SRAE, A through F, we want to see how TIP can support that and strengthen our approach to supporting our youth.
Dr. Hong, this is Jerry. We're running out of time, and I suggest that we drop a link to this next slide in the chat, but that we not comment on it. They can find that link and look at this research brief, and that you spend a couple of minutes on the student handout that you were going to talk about. And then we might still have a few minutes for questions. We're about 15 minutes from the end. Thanks.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And, as you saw me getting very excited, and sometimes when I do, I go a little bit deeper than the usual. So maybe you must have been giving me a lot of love through this platform. I was definitely feeling your spirit. So this is just we're going to send you the link to this, but TIP has been identified as one of the models out there supporting self-regulation, executive functioning, and strengthening. And so this is a TIP going abroad to South Korea and being applied in the context of serving opportunity youth as well. So I want to bring to, as Jerry mentioned, this exercise of looking at this, and you're going to see a handout of this for your toolkit. But just as you look at this red sheet, if you can write down in that red sheet, and you don't have it in front of you, but just take out any scrap paper, or if you just want to do it imaginary fill in any barrier you might be facing right now. I'm not going to ask you to answer this. You don't have to put it in the chat, but just any barrier. And then we're going to fold it up and put it into this box, okay? So I'm going to give you 10 seconds to do that. Any barrier. It could be just anything. I don't know. Somebody cut me off today as I was trying to drive into work. I don't know. I just keep thinking about that incident, and I really am upset. My kid was late to school today because we were running behind, and we couldn't find a mask to send it to, send with my son, those kinds of things. Whatever it is, just write down whatever that you might be facing. So I'm gonna send you this little kind of hand up and down, going up and down is tip, 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 and saying, we're with you, our youth at Loyola University. These are youth who are part of the TIP program with me, who are sending you their love and their recognition that we're all in this together. You might have barriers, we have barriers, but we're all sort of connected as us, as we talked about earlier, the us. Tip, tip, tip to all of you for being true to yourself and writing down on that red sheet of any barrier you might be facing. This is a little ball that you just saw bounce, and in a circle of women, we were kind of sharing as we did the red sheet, folded it and then put it in the box and put it in the box like this. But this tip ball is to throw around and ask, how are you tipping? How are you tipping the barriers to hope? You're not stuck on the red sheet, what you wrote down on the red sheet. You're kind of, but now let's get our mindset moving forward. Like, how are you tipping the barriers to hope? You may not be, that's okay. We're not forcing you to say that you have to be tipping the barriers to hope, but I'm asking you, how are you? What's the temperature here, right? So that's something that's, just think about it in your mind. How are you tipping your barriers to hope today? How are you tipping? And then now as we reach the final destination, this one and the next slide, we're going to write down 2 hope actions. Remember, we said we're going to be intentional about hope being higher than the hope barriers, right? So you're going to have 2 hope actions for every 1 barrier. That's the dosage, everyone. If left alone, it might be 1 barrier, 1 hope, and it's going to be like a kind of standstill, right? But we're adding that 1 extra step forward, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So I'm going to ask you to write down 2 hope actions here. Anything, they don't have to be related, but any 2 hope actions that you're going to be committing to yourself for you to take the 2 steps forward to reach your goal. This is again about your goal. So as you think about the goal, there were barriers that you wrote down. It could be just anything that could have happened that just derails you or slows you down. But here we are, writing 2 hope actions down. And then we're going to fold it up in your mind and then put it into this box. And the last slide before we open up for Q&A is this. We are conditioning ourselves. It's kind of like a workout, going out to work out with a trainer. If I run into a barrier that you wrote down in the red sheet, you fill that out right there. And then, which is something that makes it impossible to achieve what I want, the goal, then I will take the following hope actions, the 2 hope actions that you filled out on the green sheet, put those down here in these blanks to make it possible to achieve what I want. And that's a contract with yourself, and you sign and date. You can do it in your head, you can do it on a scrap paper, on the side. Let's do that right now. Just condition it. So when you see the red, every time you see the red, now you're coming up with 2 hope actions, okay? So that's what we're doing as one of the tip exercise. And these are the references of all the tip work that has been done in research and tested with our youth and different populations, and also being reminded that this is not for those people. This is PSS as us. We're doing it together. There's no those people. It's us. We're all doing it together. We're rising together towards reaching our fullest potential to thrive together. So again, I want to say thank you, and I will open up for any questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hong. And we will monitor the chat to see if there are some questions that people want to raise. I wanted to make one comment, and that is you spoke again in your reference to the SRAE topics. You talked a little bit about healthy marriages. And yesterday, Labrita White from FISB shared in the chat a link to some healthy marriage research and material. And if she's listening to me, I'll ask her to see if she could post that again. If not, we'll make sure to forward that to you at some point so that you can take advantage of that additional information. Let's see what questions we might have that are coming up. One of the things as I'm looking at the questions that came to my mind, you talked about change and transformation and kind of laid out some of the differences. So much of what SRAE educators do is group oriented. And so could you talk a little bit, because the transformation process is more individualized. So talk a little bit about how people can address this and move it along in a group setting.
Yes, thank you so much for that question. And you saw earlier the green box. I'm going to bring that back to you for this box right here. And you're going to see how the green box over here, you see the red accumulating and the green accumulating. And you're going to see that the green accumulates at a faster rate because you're putting two, each person's putting two in, one person's putting one in. So together as a group, visually, we get to see the green growing, at a faster rate. And so it's a great way to celebrate together that individual processes might be very honorable, and we should celebrate those. At the same time, as a group, we have overcome so many barriers together, but at a faster rate, double the amount is the hope actions that we created together. So that's something, one of the techniques we've used to kind of see through the ways that we've built hope together. And also in this context, I know we're talking about program partners or employers coming and looking at this. They expect this to happen in their workplace. And if we work with other systems like education, like our schools or colleges who look at who look at our youth work, they say this is what we want to see when we bring in your youth to our school, or to our college, our program. So it's also engaging at the system level to see what they can expect. So thank you for that question again, Jerry.
Dr. Hong, you gave a couple of examples of barriers. Can you give a couple of examples of hope actions?
Yeah,
Mickey has asked that.
Thank you for that question. And I wish we can have more conversations about these, but it could be, it's anything that you can say is really, it's difficult to name it, but it could be just like, I'm going to remind myself that I'm a good enough person to do X, Y, and Z. Often I have a lot of self-doubt. Self-doubt could be my barrier, but my hope action could be, I'm going to remind myself that I'm good enough. And I'm going to I'm going to actually write down in my journal that I will take measures to improve this or that. Those are hope actions, not necessarily anything fancy out there, but it's just what's doable, what's manageable for myself. So thank you for the question.
Thank you. And looks like Tracy also illustrated some hope actions in the chat. Angela asks, when your students have goals to be an influencer, singer, dancer, model, professional athlete, while that may be what they wish they could do, it may not be a realistic way to support oneself. Comment on that, please.
Great question. We've had a lot of folks, especially working with youth, and we, it could be that sometimes we see it too quickly that these are inflated sense of self, or something that is unimaginable and unrealistic. But allowing those to be, that's why we do goal setting twice in TIP, and where we say, just write down anything that you say you like to be. But one thing that I didn't show you here, we do a backward goal mapping, and we imagine that in our own imagination as having achieved it, almost like this sensation of having achieved it. And I do an interview with everybody and say, congratulations, everybody, you have just achieved this wonderful goal. How does it feel? And so they have to do an interview publicly in front of the group. And then so they feel this sensation. But then what they have to do is to do a backward mapping of the last steps that they actually took to get to the finish line, and then bring it back to where they are now to take the first 3 steps to get to that goal. So that's the tip goal number 1 exercise. We do the same thing in tip goal number 2. And when we do that, these things shift in ways that would make those realistic steps that they wrote down may sometimes become that goal again in tip goal 2. So it shifts a little bit, adjusts. Maybe they didn't give up on that goal, but they said before they get there, I may have to do these stepping stones before I get there. So that may become my goal later. So it's up to the kids. We don't typically tell them, oh, that is unrealistic, give it up. That's only a few 1% out of many, thousands or hundreds of thousands that actually get there. So we don't put out the fire in each individual. So thank you for the question.
Dr. Hong, Annie asks, and this will be our last question, I would love to hear more about the development of self-love and a sense of purpose. Can you speak more to that?
Yes, the development of self-love, we do an exercise called What I Like About Myself and write down 5 things. And we look at each other, like pair up individuals in groups to recite those things that you wrote that you like about yourself. Often the youth have not thought a lot about it, and they have a hard time even listing out 5, but to recite it, but the other person has to repeat back. What I just heard you say is that you like about yourself on these 5 things. Are you satisfied with my repeating your what you just said? So when you go through it and do it by vice versa, it reinforces things that you like about yourself, which you had not even thought about. Even that has been transformative for myself too. In growing up, I never said these things I like about myself, and I listed those in my own work with with our groups. I participate with them, and often I get surprised by things that I find out about myself. So I'll just pause there. I know we're at time. I wish there's more time, but we will see each other tomorrow. There's more to be talked about, and this is to be continued with more things to be shared with you tomorrow.
Thank you, Dr. Hong. Our time is up. My last comment is that the link that I referred to, Labrita provided it to me, and I just put it into the chat. So you can see that on Healthy Marriage and use that as a resource as well. So thank you, Dr. Hong, and we are going to take a 10-minute break. Come back in on the next Zoom link on your agenda in 10 minutes at 2:20 Eastern or 20 past the hour, wherever you are. Thank you.
Thank you.